guess we can hear me.
Can you hear me if I don't use it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's not. I can yell. Okay, so welcome everybody to this session. If you're expecting someone who's not in Taekwondo garb, you're in the wrong place. My name is Megan. I am the facilitator for the session. I work for the Center for Disability Resources, which are part of the School of Medicine. And for those of you, how many of you are needing CEUs? All right, those of you who need CEUs, you are eligible for AHEC or South Carolina Department of Ed CEU. You have to stay until the end because I have a secret code that I have to give you in order for you to claim your CEUs. Okay? Has everybody signed in at the table? Did everyone get a ticket? Yes. Who has the winning ticket? Nice. Okay, so I feel like it's going to be a competition. I like it. So we are giving away one door prize at the end. So I will call your ticket number out. Depending, I don't know if it'll be yours. We'll see. At the end, so stay till the end. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you silence your phones so that they don't go off and disrupt our wonderful speaker. Let's see. All right. I don't think there are any other questions. Oh, if you would please hold questions until the end. Megan has left the last 10 minutes or so for questions. However, she did say if you have a burning desire to ask something and you cannot wait, you may raise your hand and ask it. Got it? All right. I'm now going to turn it over to Megan.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming to my presentation today. As you can see, it's entitled Breaking Barriers, A Personal Journey. And that is something that we will be doing very literally at the end. So I would encourage you to stick around until then. Before we begin, I just want to reiterate all experiences, opinions, and views expressed are my own. The objectives for this session is that you will all be able to understand the basic disease presentation of stiff person syndrome, also known as SPS, that you will be able to understand the importance of physical activity in individuals with chronic conditions, and that you will be able to describe the basics of adaptive Taekwondo, and perhaps you yourself or someone you know will be encouraged to try the sport. And this is me at the 2018 World Championships. I did not know this picture was being taken, but I had learned to modify my planks that way. The photographer thought it was cool. And so difficult does not mean impossible, it just means you have to work hard and get really creative. And apparently smile while you're doing a plank for a minute. So, a little bit about me. I am a soon-to-be rising third-year Master of Social Work candidate. I am the founder and president of Makes Miracles, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that raises money for stiff person syndrome research at the world's only SPS center at Johns Hopkins. I am a third-degree black belt, level 2 instructor, and level 3 chief judge, as well as a 9-time world champion in Song Taekwondo, earning my titles in 2018 and 2019. I'm also a 2019 graduate of the University of Pittsburgh with my bachelor's in communication rhetoric, health sciences concentration with a minor in the administration of justice. I also serve as the state of South Carolina's young adult rare representative to the Rare Disease Legislative Advocates. And I just got back from speaking on Capitol Hill last week for Rare Disease Week 2023. I am a 2023-2024 medical social work intern at 8 regional medical centers. The last requirement for me to graduate with my degree. So, you might be wondering, Megan, you can move your legs. Why So my legs are actually dislocated at the ankle, and they're stuck that way in contraction. My muscles have tightened so much that you cannot manipulate my feet. And so this story really all begins on August 24, 2012, with a friend. I mean, he's not really my friend, but we're not going to fight over the relationship status because he's here to live in my body, and I have to live with it. So, at least for now, so we're gonna embrace it. But I'm gonna introduce you to him. On August 24, 2012, just 12 days after my 16th birthday, I was given my only dose of the highly controversial Gardasil HPV vaccine for a upcoming varsity basketball season sports physical, which was a task that I had to do anyway. I knew it. As a healthy, active teenager, getting my sports physical was something I did every year. And little did I know that the moment that that needle broke my skin, my life was going to change forever. I have a genetically predisposed body to the contents of the vaccine. So that led to a catastrophic autoimmune cascade, which has affected every organ and every aspect of my life. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. At first, my parents, who are both medical professionals, sent me off to bed 3 hours after vaccination with a dose of Tylenol, expecting that I would be better in the morning, the same way I always had. But little did we know that the healthy, energetic, overachieving 16-year-old girl that they have come to know and love was going to be so profoundly impacted by the actions of the day prior, and would be for the years to come. I was fighting a foreign invader that had no name, and diagnosis after diagnosis, symptom after symptom, it just started all adding up to a mystery. And it struck our family like a hurricane. That is something that I don't think is talked about much in society, is just how devastating being undiagnosed or misdiagnosed can devastate a family emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and financially. But we did make it to the other side, and I'm here today, so I guess something worked out right. I was in every month, every other month, like clockwork. I would be in the hospital fighting for my life. And the doctors would treat the symptoms, but they never really got down to what is causing her to be so sick. And at one point, I eventually stopped breathing completely. And I became dependent on a ambu bag to give me air as I was rushed down to the pediatric intensive care unit. And something was not adding up, and thankfully for me, some of the top doctors in the US were taking notice. I was still living my life though. I was a high school student, determined to graduate with my peers near the top of my class. And nothing was going to stand in the way of me going to college. nothing. So one morning, I remember my mom woke me up and she said to me, you know, I think we need to give this mystery disease a name. And I said, well, what are you thinking? And she told me, what about auto? O-T-T-O. And I was like, well, that makes sense. We know it's an autoimmune disease. We just don't know what kind of autoimmune disease. So the disease henceforth became known as auto. So simple, yet so devastatingly life-threatening to my young life. I went on to graduate high school with the highest honors in 2014, and I was off to my first choice university, University of Pittsburgh, to study neuroscience on the pre-med track, until my life came to a screeching halt in 2016, the spring semester of 2016. Now, the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh thought that they had a diagnosis, and I was actually responding to their treatment. And so it had been over 4 years at that point, and I wasn't responding to anything. But they wanted confirmation from the then leading Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, 14 hours from my home. The teams believed that auto was an exceptionally rare pediatric-onset variant of the already 1 in a million stiff person syndrome. So I begrudgingly took incompletes for my college classes and continued living in the hospital, for lack of a better phrase, until they could get me to Minnesota. And then auto attacked even worse, as if that was possible. And I started having unpredictable and uncontrollable seizures. So my mom cautiously hauled me from Pittsburgh to Baltimore to Minneapolis and then down to Rochester, Minnesota, to the Mayo Clinic. The doctors came in at the Mayo Clinic and told us that despite my very high antibody level in my blood and my cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, it was all in my head. All of my symptoms were all in my head. And they had no explanation for why I had these crazy antibodies at exceptionally high levels, extraordinarily high levels, off the charts. But the following day, I didn't wake up. I didn't wake up the next day, or the next, or the next, or in a week. It took 11 days for me to wake up from a seizure, a catastrophic seizure. And my parents were told while I was sleeping that they should prepare for me to be a vegetable, with no hopes of going back to med school and no hopes of being anything. But no one was prepared for the rally that happened on November 23rd, 2016. The girl that would be a vegetable woke up from that 11-day coma, and I could talk, just barely. I forgot how to feed myself. I forgot how to dress myself. I forgot how to move my arms and legs. And so you would think that the doctors have been wrong about it all being in my head, right? Wrong. They slowly withdrew the treatments one by one until I was a regular in the hospital all over again. And one day in 2017, I will never forget, I was sitting in my dorm room and I had this wave of doom just come over me. And it said, if you don't get another opinion, you're not going to come out of this alive. And so I started researching every doctor that knew about SPS in the Northeast United States, looking for anybody that would take my case. But what we find out is I would spend most of my college years in and out of ICU, intubated, sedated, and supposedly paralyzed. Now, I was still managing to move, which is a physiological impossibility given the drugs that I had in my system. But yet I was still spasming, and my parents and my doctors could see that. So at the beginning of 2018, one of the first doctors on the adult side of the healthcare system said, she's not faking this. This is actually a real organic disease process that we need to figure out. And that addendum to my medical records was written on January 1st of 2018. However, on January 23rd, 2019, the only stiff person syndrome center in the world at Johns Hopkins diagnosed me as one of 25 known cases of pediatric-onset classical SPS worldwide. Now, the mystery's solved, and I am on treatment for the disease. There is no cure. It is progressive. It's rare, acquired, and progressive. It is a spectrum disorder that affects approximately 1 to 2 in a million between the ages of 30 and 60 years old. The reason it was not caught in my case was because the age of onset was 16. The kids tend to be forgotten. So anyone under 30 tends to be forgotten. Although most of these people that get it as kids are not diagnosed until adulthood, which is an average time to diagnosis of over 7 years. And that was certainly my case. So now we keep Otto around as a reminder of that harrowing 7-year diagnostic odyssey. And let's face it, Otto is a lot less of a mouthful than the full name of the disease. But the disease was formerly known as stiff man syndrome, or SMS. However, it was renamed when they discovered that twice as many men as women were affected by the disease. And although it is extremely uncommon, SPS can begin in childhood, as it did in my case. These patients make up approximately 5% of all cases, and as I mentioned earlier, many cases go undiagnosed until adulthood. So on the handout that you've all received earlier, this information is all on there. So I'm just going to skim this. This is all stuff that is easily found on Google. But the main symptoms of SPS include severe muscle spasms, muscle rigidity, hypolordosis of the lumbar spine, spasticity of the extremities, anxiety, agoraphobia, frequent falls due to impaired reflexes, and muscle contractures, as I have from extremely delayed diagnosis. You typically do not see muscle contractures and changes in the spine until the disease is very advanced and has been without treatment for a long time.